The first time I saw Dashiell digging in the backyard at midnight, I thought he was sleepwalking. Through my bedroom window, I watched my 17-year-old son standing near the old oak tree with a shovel. Illuminated only by moonlight, he moved with purpose, not the confused stumbling of someone asleep. He dug a hole about 2 feet deep, placed something wrapped in plastic inside, and carefully filled it back in. Then he smoothed the dirt and walked back to the house like nothing had happened. I stayed frozen at my window, my heart pounding. What had I just witnessed? The next morning at breakfast, Dashiell seemed completely normal. He ate his cereal, complained about his history homework, asked if I could drive him to soccer practice after school. There was no indication he'd been outside digging holes in the middle of the night. "Did you sleep well?" I asked carefully. "Yeah, fine. Why?" His confusion seemed genuine. I let it go that day, convincing myself I'd imagined it or misunderstood what I'd seen. But 2 nights later, it happened again. Same time, same place near the oak tree. Dashiell went out with his shovel, dug another hole, buried something, came back inside. This time I was certain. My son was burying something in our backyard repeatedly, and he was doing it secretly in the middle of the night. Over the next week, I watched him do this 4 more times. Always between midnight and 1 in the morning. Always near that oak tree. Always wrapping whatever it was in plastic before burying it. During the day, he acted completely normal. He went to Lincoln High School, attended soccer practice, hung out with his friends. He was a good kid, never been in trouble. Maintained decent grades, but something was clearly wrong. I considered confronting him directly, but something stopped me. If Dashiell was in some kind of trouble, confronting him might make him shut down completely. Teenagers can be secretive, especially when they're scared or ashamed. I needed to know what he was burying before I could help him. So I made a decision. On Thursday morning, after Dashiell left for school, I went into the backyard with a shovel of my own. The ground near the oak tree showed signs of recent digging in several spots. I chose the area where I'd seen him dig most recently and started carefully excavating. About 18 inches down, my shovel hit something. I cleared away the dirt with my hands and found a plastic bag, the kind with a zipper seal. Inside was a stack of cash. I stared at it in shock. $50 bills, maybe $2,000 total. Where had Dashiell gotten this kind of money? I kept digging in another spot. I found another bag, more cash, this time in 20s. In a third location, there was jewelry, expensive-looking pieces with tags still attached. My hands were shaking as I laid everything out on our patio table. 4 plastic bags total, containing approximately $6,000 in cash and maybe another $2,000 worth of jewelry. All of it hidden in our backyard by my 17-year-old son. The implications were terrifying. This was stolen, it had to be. There was no legitimate way Dashiell could have this much money and jewelry. But stolen from where? From whom? I thought about calling the police immediately, but hesitated. If I reported this, Dashiell would be arrested. His life would be destroyed before it even really began. But if I didn't report it, I was potentially covering up serious crimes. I decided to wait until Dashiell got home and confront him directly. I needed to hear his explanation before making any decisions. I carefully reburied everything exactly as I'd found it, making sure the dirt looked undisturbed. Then I went inside and waited. Dashiell arrived home at 4:30. Same as always, he threw his backpack on the kitchen counter and headed to the refrigerator. "How was school?" I asked, trying to keep my voice normal. "Fine, we had a pop quiz in chemistry. Pretty sure I failed." He grabbed an apple and started eating. I watched him carefully, looking for any sign of guilt or anxiety. Nothing. He seemed like any normal teenager. "Dash, sit down, we need to talk." Something in my tone made him look up. "What's wrong? I need you to be completely honest with me. Are you in some kind of trouble?" His face went carefully blank. "What are you talking about? I've seen you going outside at night, digging near the oak tree. I know you're burying something out there." Dashiell went pale. For a moment I thought he might deny it, but instead he just stared at me with fear in his eyes. "You dug it up?" "Yes, I found the money and the jewelry." "Dashiell, where did all that come from?" He stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "You shouldn't have done that. Mom, you really shouldn't have." "Then tell me what's going on. Help me understand." Dashiell paced the kitchen, running his hands through his hair. He looked terrified, which scared me even more. "I can't tell you. If I tell you, people could get hurt." "What people?" "Dash, you're scaring me." He turned to face me, and I saw tears in his eyes. Mom, please just let it go. Pretend you never saw anything. I'll move everything somewhere else. But please don't ask me about it. I can't do that if you're involved in something illegal. I'm not. I mean, not exactly. It's complicated. He sat back down heavily. If I tell you, you have to promise you won't go to the police. Not yet. I wanted to promise, but I couldn't. I need to know the truth first. Dashiell was quiet for a long time. Finally, he started talking. You know my friend Quentin. I did. Quentin Marsh was Dashiell's best friend since middle school. Nice kid from what I'd seen, lived 3 streets over. Quentin's dad, Mr. Marsh, he's been stealing from his company. Like, a lot. Hundreds of thousands of dollars over the past 2 years. I felt my stomach drop. How do you know this? Quentin found out by accident. He was looking for something in his dad's home office and found bank statements, deposit slips, all kinds of evidence. His dad's been embezzling from Riverside Manufacturing, where he works as the finance director. Dashiell's hands were shaking. Quentin confronted him about it. His dad completely broke down, admitted everything, said he got in over his head with gambling debts and couldn't stop. Okay, but what does this have to do with the money in our backyard? Mr. Marsh knew he was about to get caught. The company was starting an audit. He begged Quentin to help him hide some of the cash and assets before the auditors found everything. Quentin didn't know what to do, so he came to me. I was starting to understand. And you agreed to hide it here. Just temporarily. Quentin was freaking out. His dad said if the audit found everything, they'd lose their house, his mom would find out. The whole family would be destroyed. He just needed a safe place to stash some of it until he could figure out what to do. Dashiell, that's called accessory to embezzlement. That's a serious crime. I know. I realized that after I agreed to help. But by then, Quentin had already brought the first batch over. I didn't know what else to do except bury it where no one would find it. I sat there processing this information. My son wasn't a thief. He was trying to help his best friend's family. But in doing so, he'd made himself part of a major crime. How much is buried out there total? I don't know exactly. Maybe $30,000 or $40,000. Plus the jewelry Mr. Marsh bought with company money that he was supposed to return but couldn't. This has to be reported. You understand that, right? But Quentin's family will face consequences for what Mr. Marsh did. Whether we report it or not, the audit will find the theft. But if we come forward now with what we know, it might help both you and Quentin avoid serious charges. Dashiell put his head in his hands. Quentin's going to hate me. Quentin's father put both of you in an impossible position. This isn't your fault, but we have to make it right. That evening, I called a lawyer I knew, Petra Drummond, who specialized in criminal defense. I explained the situation without naming names initially. Petra was blunt. If your son is holding stolen money, every day that passes makes his legal position worse. The best option is voluntary disclosure to authorities before the audit reveals everything. Will he be charged? Possibly. But given his age and the circumstances, being pressured by an adult to help hide assets, a prosecutor might show leniency, especially with cooperation. I thanked her and hung up. Then Dashiell and I had a long conversation about doing the right thing even when it's hard. The next morning, I drove Dashiell to the local police station. He was terrified, and honestly, so was I. We asked to speak with a detective about a financial crime. Detective Ronan Voss met with us in a small interview room. I let Dashiell tell the story himself. With me there for support, he explained everything: how Quentin had discovered his father's embezzlement, how Mr. Marsh had asked for help hiding assets, how Dashiell had agreed to bury cash and jewelry. How much are we talking about? Detective Voss asked. Maybe $30,000 or $40,000 total. Dashiell said quietly. And it's all still buried in your backyard. Yes, sir. Detective Voss made notes. This is a serious situation. But I appreciate you coming forward voluntarily. That counts for something. He explained that he'd need to verify the story, contact Riverside Manufacturing about their audit, and potentially bring in financial crime specialists. Within hours, things moved quickly. Detective Voss contacted Riverside Manufacturing. They confirmed an internal audit had indeed discovered significant financial irregularities tied to their finance director, Camden Marsh. The company had been planning to report to authorities that week. Now, with Dashiell's disclosure, police had physical evidence and witness testimony to move immediately. Camden Marsh was arrested at his office that afternoon. Police seized financial records from his home office and excavated our backyard, recovering all the buried cash and jewelry. Quentin was brought in for questioning with his mother. According to Detective Voss, Quentin confirmed everything Dashiell had said. He'd found the evidence, confronted his father, and then panicked when his father begged for help. The two boys had made a terrible decision out of loyalty and fear. The prosecutor assigned to the case, a stern woman named Margot Castellano, met with me and Dashiell separately. "Your son made a bad choice," she told me directly. "But he's also a juvenile with no prior record who came forward voluntarily. That matters. What happens to him? Juvenile diversion program, most likely. Community service, regular check-ins with a probation officer. Maybe some counseling about decision-making. If he completes the program successfully, this won't follow him into adulthood." It was better than I'd feared. Quentin received the same arrangement. Both boys would have consequences, but not life-destroying ones. Camden Marsh, however, faced 15 felony counts. The full scope of his embezzlement was staggering. Over 2 years, he'd stolen nearly $400,000 from Riverside Manufacturing. The money had gone to gambling debts, luxury purchases, and attempts to maintain a lifestyle his salary couldn't support. At his arraignment, Camden looked broken. His wife sat in the courtroom, shocked and devastated. Their family's life was imploding. I felt sympathy for them, but I also knew that Camden had made his choices. Worse, he'd tried to drag his own son down with him. The case made local news. Finance director arrested for major embezzlement ran in the Riverside Journal. Details about the buried cash and the involvement of teenage accomplices created sensational headlines. Dashiell was humiliated. His name wasn't published because he was a minor. But everyone at school figured out it was him. Some kids treated him like a criminal. Others actually thought what he'd done was cool, which horrified me even more. He lost some friends but kept others, including Quentin, who felt terrible about dragging Dashiell into the situation. The diversion program was intensive. Dashiell had to perform 200 hours of community service at a local food bank. He met with a probation officer every 2 weeks. He attended counseling sessions about ethical decision-making and peer pressure. At first, he resented all of it. But gradually, something changed. Working at the food bank exposed him to people struggling with real problems: poverty, homelessness, addiction. It gave him perspective. The counseling helped him understand why he'd made the choices he did and how to make better ones in the future. 6 months into the program, Dashiell came home one evening and said, "I'm glad you dug up that money. Mom, if you hadn't, I don't know how long I would have let it go on. You were in over your head." I said gently, "I know, and I was too scared to ask for help." "That was stupid. It was human. But you learned from it." Camden Marsh eventually pleaded guilty to all charges. He was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison and ordered to pay full restitution to Riverside Manufacturing. His family lost their house and had to move to a smaller apartment across town. Quentin's mother filed for divorce. The whole situation was tragic, a reminder of how one person's bad decisions can destroy multiple lives. Quentin struggled more than Dashiell did. He felt responsible for his father's choices somehow, even though the counselors told him repeatedly that he wasn't. He completed his diversion program, but remained withdrawn and quiet. Dashiell tried to support him, but their friendship was never quite the same. The weight of what had happened stood between them. A year after the arrest, Dashiell completed his diversion program successfully. All charges were dismissed. His record would be sealed when he turned 18. He'd gotten the second chance that our legal system sometimes, rarely, offers. The experience changed him fundamentally. He became more thoughtful, less impulsive. He started thinking seriously about his future. One evening, he told me he was considering studying criminal justice in college. "I want to understand the system better," he explained. "Maybe work with kids who make dumb mistakes like I did." I was proud of him for taking something terrible and finding purpose in it. As for me, I learned something important too. My instinct to investigate before confronting had been right. If I'd gone to police immediately, without understanding the full situation, Dashiell might not have had the chance to come forward voluntarily. That voluntary disclosure made all the difference in how authorities treated him. I also learned that good kids can make catastrophically bad decisions when they're scared and feel trapped. Dashiell wasn't a criminal. He was a teenager who loved his best friend and made a terrible choice trying to help. The difference between how the system treated him versus how it treated Camden Marsh showed that context and intent matter. Our backyard still has marks where police excavated. The grass grew back unevenly. Every time I look at that spot near the oak tree, I remember those terrifying nights watching my son bury secrets in the dark. But I also remember what came after, the hard conversations, the accountability, the growth. That patch of uneven grass is a reminder that people can survive their mistakes if they're willing to face consequences and learn. Camden Marsh wrote to me once from prison. The letter was apologetic, explaining that he'd never meant to involve the boys, that his gambling addiction had destroyed his judgment. He asked me to tell Dashiell he was sorry. I showed Dashiell the letter. He read it silently and then said, "He's sorry now because he got caught. He wasn't sorry when he was asking a 17-year-old to hide stolen money." That clarity showed me how much Dashiell had matured. He understood now that apologies don't erase harm, and that adults who manipulate kids deserve full consequences. Riverside Manufacturing recovered most of the stolen money through restitution orders and insurance claims. The company implemented new financial controls and oversight procedures. In a strange way, Camden's theft had exposed vulnerabilities that might have been exploited by others later. Dashiell graduated from Lincoln High School with decent grades and was accepted to Indiana State University. He decided to major in criminal justice. Just as he'd mentioned, at his graduation, I watched him walk across the stage and felt overwhelming relief. 2 years earlier, I'd been terrified his life was over. Now he was starting college, moving forward, building a future. The experience had taught both of us about justice, not just legal justice, but moral justice. The right thing isn't always easy or clear. Sometimes it means turning in people you love. Sometimes it means accepting punishment you think is unfair. But doing the right thing, even when it's hard, is what allows you to live with yourself afterward. Quentin also went to college, though he stayed local and lived at home with his mother. He and Dashiell still texted occasionally, but had drifted apart. Some friendships can't survive the weight of shared trauma, no matter how much history exists. That's sad but understandable. On Dashiell's 18th birthday, his juvenile record was officially sealed. Legally, the embezzlement incident no longer existed. He could honestly answer no on job applications asking about criminal history. It was a fresh start he'd earned through accountability and changed behavior. But I knew he'd never forget what happened. Neither would I the night before Dashiell left for college. We sat on the back patio near the oak tree. "You never answered my question from that day," he said suddenly. "What question?" "Why you dug up the money, instead of just confronting me immediately." I thought about it, because I needed to understand what we were dealing with before I could help you. If I'd confronted you without knowing the full story, you might have lied or shut down completely. Sometimes, as a parent, you have to investigate before you react. "That makes sense," he said. "I'm glad you did. If you just called the cops immediately, I never would have had the chance to come forward voluntarily. And that voluntary disclosure saved you." "I know, I think about that a lot." We sat in comfortable silence as the sun set. Then Dashiell said, "Mom, thank you for not giving up on me. A lot of parents would have. You're my son, I'll never give up on you. But I also won't let you destroy your life without fighting for you, even if that fight is uncomfortable." He hugged me then, this young man who'd been my little boy such a short time ago. The next day, I drove him to Indiana State and helped him move into his dorm. As I drove home alone, I thought about everything that had happened since those midnight digging sessions. The fear, the investigation, the legal consequences, the growth. Parenting doesn't end when your kids become teenagers. Sometimes that's when it gets hardest. You have to know when to step in and when to step back, when to investigate and when to trust. I'd made the right calls, but it had been terrifying every step of the way. Teenagers make mistakes. Sometimes those mistakes are small, missed curfews, failed tests, broken rules. Sometimes they're bigger, like hiding stolen money for a friend's father. As parents, we walk a difficult line. We want to trust our kids, but we also need to protect them, even from themselves. If you notice your child behaving strangely, investigate with love, but also with determination. Don't assume the best and ignore warning signs, but also don't assume the worst and destroy trust unnecessarily. Context matters, intent matters. In Dashiell's case, he wasn't stealing. He was making a catastrophically bad decision while trying to help someone he cared about. That distinction mattered in how the legal system treated him and in how he viewed himself afterward. Voluntary disclosure saved him. If we'd waited, if the audit had revealed everything first, the consequences might have been much worse. Coming forward when we did, with cooperation and honesty, gave him a chance at a second start. To any parent facing something similar, get legal advice immediately. Encourage your child to come forward voluntarily. And remember that mistakes don't define a person's entire future. Accountability and growth matter more than perfection. My son buried secrets in our backyard, but he also learned that truth, no matter how painful, is always better than hidden lies. Juvenile diversion programs help young people learn from mistakes without destroying their futures. If your child is in trouble, contact a juvenile justice attorney immediately. Early intervention matters. And now to the lovely viewers of this channel. Got a story? We want to hear it. Your voice matters here, whether it's a personal experience, a revenge moment, a wild betrayal, or just an idea that could make our next story even better. We're listening. Tell us what themes you want more of. What twists keep you hooked? What hit you hardest in this story? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. The best suggestions might become our next viral story. Kindly hit the subscribe button for more satisfying stories like this. Thanks for watching.